of Bricklin is less about a company and more about a man, Malcom Bricklin. A man who at 19 took his father's handyman hardware store business and turned it into a franchise, which crashed and burned in a series of lawsuits that Bricklin himself seemed to somehow wiggle out of. By the mid-1960s, he started to import and rent the Rabbit scooter of Fuji Heavy Industries, a scooter similar to but predating the Vespa. After meeting with Fuji leadership and being exposed to the Subaru 360, he created Subaru America, and in 1968 began importing Subarus. The car was not well suited for American roads, but could get 60 miles per gallon and weighed less than 1,000 pounds, a weight that made it exempt from new safety regulations, something that was not lost on consumers, and it was dubbed the most unsafe car on the market, in a market that included the Corvair. They didn't sell particularly well, and in 1971, he created a short-lived side business called Fast Track that was basically go-kart racing using unsold Subarus. But Subaru America went public within a year, a first for a Japanese car company, and Bricklin made a fortune. So naturally, the next step was to build his own car, so he created General Vehicles. The original plan was to build a 4-cylinder car using parts from Opel, Datsun, and Toyota, but it was quickly decided that a 4-cylinder couldn't affordably produce enough power, so the original Grey Ghost prototype of 1971 used a Chrysler Slant 6 instead, on primarily Datsun 510 running gear. Overall, 8 prototypes were built, using a variety of mixed parts and engines, ranging from an AMC straight 6 to a Ford V8. By the time the car made it into production for the 1974 model year, the Canadian-built car was using primarily AMC parts. In fact, some people would go so far as to consider the Bricklin SV-1, or Safety Vehicle 1, to be little more than the next generation of AMC AMX, although mechanically it was closer to the Hornet SC than the AMX. The safety aspect being the high-impact integrated bumpers and its steel perimeter frame with an integrated rollover structure, side rails, and door impact support beams, as well as standard front disc brakes. Cost-cutting using off-the-shelf parts continued with the styling as well, using generic Italian taillights shared with Maserati and De Tomaso, adding yet another exotic touch to its hydraulic gull-wing doors and its acrylic and fiberglass body, molded in safety colors: safety green, safety white, safety red, safety orange, and safety suntan. 1974 models used an AMC 5.9-liter, 360 cubic inch V8, producing a respectable for the time 220 net horsepower. It could hit 60 in just over 7 seconds and did the quarter mile in the mid-15s. It was called the Corvette's first real competitor. People were lining up to purchase them, with 40,000 orders before production even began. But production issues led to growing expenses, and a predicted starting price of $4,000 quickly turned into $7,500, which was still almost half of what it was costing to build them. Less than 800 of the 1974 model were made, and things only got worse going forward. Nepotism prevented even simple issues from getting resolved, and was a contributing factor to high turnover of both management and production workers. Only loans provided by the Canadian provincial government kept the project going, and soon everyone was blaming everyone else for continued delays. AMC pulled out as the engine supplier, and they were forced to switch to a Ford-sourced 175 horsepower, 351 cubic inch, or 5.7-liter Windsor V8 for 1975. This required extensive modifications that cost the company more money, and removed the manual transmission as an option. Prices were up nearly another $2,500, making the car dangerously close to $10,000, and acceleration times were up more than a second in the quarter mile and nearly 2 seconds to 60. In spite of this, the company still had orders, but labor and production issues continued to prevent the cars from being produced in a timely manner, which meant they weren't getting delivered. Soon the company was bankrupt, and what uncompleted cars that were left on site were later completed and sold as 76 models to recoup some of the losses. In the end, less than 3,000 total were made. But Bricklin wasn't done with cars. In 1982, after Fiat pulled out of the U.S., Bricklin created International Automobile Importers and started importing Fiat's sports cars as the Bertone X19 and the Pininfarina Azzurra. But a few years later, when GM formed a partnership with Pininfarina to build Cadillac Alante bodies, International Automobile Importers was given the boot by Pininfarina so they could focus on the more lucrative contract with GM, which led Bricklin to Zastava, a company in Yugoslavia, now Serbia, that had been building Fiats under license since the early 1950s, and soon the Zastava Coral was being imported to the U.S. as the Yugo, a car that was, at its core, a short wheelbase Fiat 128. It required several upgrades to meet U.S. safety and emissions regulations, as well as the addition of expected comfort and convenience features, and the smaller 900cc engine wouldn't be offered. Bricklin also made several attempts to improve manufacturing quality before delivery started. It was the cheapest new car you could buy in America at the time, just under $4,000 in 1987. A base GV came with a 1.1-liter inline-4 with 55 horsepower, or you could upgrade to the bigger 1.3-liter with about 10 more horsepower. And although the car is much criticized, customer surveys when they were new suggested that those that bought them new liked them for the most part. And they set sales records for a European import, selling 163,000 of them in the first 3 years. But naturally, Bricklin sold his shares in the company in 1988, once again making a fortune. And sanctions against Yugoslavia put an end to the Yugo brand in 1992, and Zastava itself would only survive until 2008. After Yugo, Bricklin was convinced electric vehicles were the wave of the future, and the first step towards electric cars was electric bicycles. So in 1993, the Electric Bicycle Company introduced the EV Warrior. The bikes were advanced for their time, but expensive, and the company was bankrupt by 1996. So in 2002, he returned to what had worked in the past. He created visionary vehicles in order to import and distribute Chinese-made cars. But after spending 2 years and $26 million trying to bring Chery up to international manufacturing standards, they became aware that Chery was making deals with other companies and sharing tech. So what started as a partnership soon evolved into a legal dispute. As a result, Visionary Vehicles changed its name to V-Cars, and since then has been working with a number of companies, ranging from Mercedes to Tesla, in an attempt to create a new electric or hybrid Bricklin automobile. The company website is promoting the Bricklin 3EV, a 3-wheeled electric car based on at least some Tesla parts, with starting prices advertised between $25,000 and $30,000. But the car is still under development. It seems like a long shot, but so did the original Bricklin, and more established companies aren't much further along with their electric promises. But the future of Bricklin and electric cars are yet to be determined, so we will see what comes. Until then, thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment below and like and subscribe.